Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. In the hush of a golden field at dawn, a quietness has taken hold where once there was a soft humming. It is the kind of silence that feels like something has gone missing. Long ago, these mornings would have begun with a shimmer of wings, a blur of colour darting between petals, and a faint buzzing that filled the air like a lullaby. The bees would be the first to arrive, drifting from flower to flower with the careful patience of memory. Butterflies danced like drifting leaves, light as whispers, their wings painted in the colours of forgotten dreams. But now the air is still. The flowers bloom, but fewer visitors come. Something small has shifted. And in that small shift, the earth itself is holding its breath. Insects were once the great connectors of life. They carried pollen, fed birds, broke down the dead into life again, and even cleaned the skin of the planet. They stitched ecosystems together in threads so fine we rarely saw them, until the threads began to fray. Every tiny creature, every crawling shape in the soil or fluttering spark in the sky, was part of a quiet web. Their work was invisible, yet their absence makes the world feel oddly hollow, like a melody missing its harmony. It didn't happen all at once, the quiet grew slowly. Each year, fewer fireflies blinked across the summer night. Fewer moths brushed against porch lights, fewer beetles flickered under stones. It is a soft vanishing, gentle and unnoticed, until suddenly it is all you can feel. Scientists began to notice. Studies emerged with strange and worrying numbers. In Germany, nature reserves showed that insect biomass had dropped by more than 75% in just 3 decades. Insects, so small we barely count them, were disappearing in waves. And they weren't alone. The birds that eat them also began to fade. Swallows that once painted the sky with swift strokes began to vanish. Frogs, lizards, and small mammals that depended on crawling prey began to thin out. And in the silence that followed, the balance of things began to tip. The reasons are not mysterious. They are quiet, creeping forces: habitat loss, pesticides, climate shifts, light pollution. Farms grew larger but quieter. Wildflower meadows became sterile lawns. Pesticides designed to protect crops poisoned the air for all things winged and wild. Nighttime glowed with so much human light that fireflies could no longer find each other. And the warmth of the world itself began to change its seasons, confusing creatures who had followed ancient rhythms for millions of years. The world became harder to read for those who once moved through it with instinct alone. But not all is lost. There are places where the hum returns. Cities have started to plant gardens not for beauty, but for bees. Children scatter wildflower seeds along the edges of playgrounds. People are learning that leaving leaves in the fall is not laziness, but kindness, because within those leaves sleep next spring's butterflies. In France, they banned some of the worst pesticides, and bees began to return. In Costa Rica, forests once destroyed for cattle now pulse with insect song again. Life has a strange persistence, a memory that lives in soil and seed and spore. And sometimes, when we step back just enough, nature steps forward. There is something gentle about extinction, not in its meaning, but in its pace. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers away. But renewal, too, can be gentle. It begins in the small choices, the quiet decisions to let things live, to give space to wait and see what grows. Insects do not need monuments. They need time and shade and flowers. They need places to sleep and skies that grow dark at night. They need us to notice them not as pests, but as poetry. In every ant trail is a line of history. In every bee's flight is a memory of trees that once swayed in the wind. Insects do not speak, but they sing, and in the places where their song fades, it is up to us to hum the first notes of a new beginning. So here we are in this soft silence. But maybe it is not an ending. Maybe it is an invitation to listen again, to plant something wild, to leave a patch of the world untouched, and trust that something ancient will find it. Insects have outlived extinction before. They've crawled through fire and ice and time, and if we let them, they may yet fill the air again with the gentle rustle of wings and the sweet buzzing breath of life. Let's drift deeper into the hush, that strange sense left behind when wings no longer stir the morning air. But nubilance is not just an absence. Sometimes it's a signal, a call to look closer, to remember how things once were, and to ask what threads still remain in the quiet fabric of life. Insects, though tiny, are keepers of time. Their lives are tuned to the rhythm of the earth. A bee knows the hour of a flower's opening. A cricket's song marks the rise of evening. Cicadas wait patiently beneath the ground for 13 or 17 years, counting each season like beads on a string before emerging in chorus. They measure the world in ways we have long forgotten, by the warmth of a stone, the scent of rain, the colour of a cloud. Their connection to everything is invisible but immense. Without them, the world would unravel. Pollination is one of their soft miracles, the unseen touch that makes fruit form and seeds grow. Without pollinators, there are no apples or almonds, no pumpkins, no wild berries for birds, no food for bears preparing for sleep. But it's more than just food. Beetles break down fallen trees. Ants carry seeds and aerate the soil. Even flies, often ignored or swatted away, are part of this dance, cleaning, feeding, recycling. They are the recyclers of decay, the spark of new life. If we could see their work with clear eyes, it would look like an invisible heartbeat pulsing through every inch of earth. Yet even with their essential role, many still vanish unnoticed. There's a word for this: defaunation. It means the gradual loss of animal life, not in dramatic extinction events, but through slow, steady erasure. One by one, species disappear, and sometimes we don't even know they were here. Thousands of insects remain unnamed, undocumented, unstudied. Some may go extinct before anyone learns their names. The Amazon rainforest alone may hold millions of insect species never seen by human eyes. Their lives are brief and humble, but their roles are vast. Losing them is like losing chapters from a book we haven't finished reading. Still, some scientists call this moment the Anthropocene, the age where humans shape the planet's fate. But even in this age, nature tries to whisper back. The renewal is not loud, but it is persistent. Across fields in England, old hedgerows are being restored, tangled homes for beetles and bees. In Kenya, farmers plant wildflower corridors between crops to invite back butterflies and native bees. In Vermont, school children build tiny hotels for solitary bees, small wooden shelters filled with reeds and twigs where life can begin again. Every garden, every balcony, every hand that chooses to grow something instead of paving over it. These are quiet revolutions. And there's something else. Insects are also teachers of patience. Their lives are not built on fast change, but on cycles, on stillness, on waiting. A dragonfly nymph lives in water for years before it ever flies. Some moths do not eat at all once they emerge, living only to dance and pass life forward. Their stories are not of endless growth, but of balance, living in step with what is needed, and nothing more. Watching them, we remember that not all progress is loud, that beauty often comes slowly, in silence, in stillness, in renewal that moves at the pace of a wing beat. We begin to notice again a green lacewing resting on a window pane, a wasp gently carving into a fence to build her paper nest, a line of ants carrying treasure to a place only they know. These are not just insects, they are stories, fragments of an ancient language written in movement and scent and shape. A world that for a while we stopped listening to, but one that never stopped speaking. And when we begin to hear it again, something in us shifts, a reconnection, a remembering. The loss of insects is not just about biology. It's about memory, meaning, and the kind of world we want to live in. A world where strawberries taste like summer, where fireflies blink along rivers at dusk, where children chase butterflies through fields. These things are quiet, but they matter. They are part of the soul of the earth, not loud like thunder, but soft like moss, like petals, like the quiet buzz of life unfolding. And so the silence that once felt like an ending begins to sound different. Not empty, but open. Not gone, but waiting. Renewal does not erase what was lost. It grows around it, builds upon it, honours it. The return of the wing is slow, but it has begun, and with it the world exhales. Now imagine standing in a garden at dusk, where the light fades like breath and the air holds a gentle warmth. You wait quietly and then, just barely, a flicker of gold pulses in the air. A firefly, then another, and another. They blink like stars close enough to touch, like tiny heartbeats floating through the evening. It is not a grand spectacle. It is soft, slow, and delicate. But it is also a return. The garden is no longer silent. The wings have come back. This is how renewal feels. It does not shout. It glows. To understand extinction is to understand time. Some losses are final, like the dodo, the passenger pigeon, the great auk. Their voices are forever missing from the earth's song, but others are not yet gone. Some lives have pulled back, hidden, shrunk, but not vanished. These are the lives we can still protect, and it begins with noticing, with knowing that under every rock, inside every curled leaf, there is a world alive with movement and purpose. Renewal starts not with saving everything, but with saving what we can, and believing that small acts matter. Insects teach us that change is possible even in silence. A caterpillar, quiet and slow, builds a cocoon not to sleep but to transform. Inside it dissolves, reforms, reshapes, and emerges with wings. This is nature's softest miracle, transformation through stillness. And perhaps that is what this moment on Earth is. Cocoon, a pause before the wings, a time where we let go of harm and choose instead to nurture, to plant milkweed for monarchs, to build ponds for dragonflies, to turn our fields back into meadows, to let the wild return. Even cities are not beyond a hope. A crack in the pavement can grow a dandelion, a rooftop can grow lavender, a window box can become a sanctuary, every square inch can be a gift. Every space can hold flight. And when enough of these tiny habitats spread, like constellations across the map, the silence can lift. The earth does not need us to be perfect. It needs us to care, to look, to change course gently, to remember that even the smallest life holds wonder. In Japan, people once celebrated the chirping of autumn insects as part of music and poetry. In ancient China, crickets were kept in little cages, not just as pets, but as reminders of life's gentle music. Indigenous tribes across the Americas watched ants and bees to guide their harvests, their rituals, their respect for the land. Around the world, humans have always lived close to insects, not just beside them, but with them. Our forgetting is recent, but remembering is within reach. So let us remember, not just the danger, but the beauty. The way a dragonfly's wings catch the sun like stained glass, the way a butterfly lands without a sound, the way an ant colony moves with perfect unity beneath our feet. The world is still full of these moments. They are waiting to be seen again. And once seen, they can be protected. Not out of fear, but out of love, out of reverence, out of a deep belief that every buzzing, crawling, fluttering life has a place in the great breathing system we all share. And in the end, this is not just about insects. It is about us, about how we live, about what we choose to notice, about whether we are part of the silence or the song. Extinction is a mirror. It shows us what we've ignored. But renewal is a door. It opens slowly, it creaks with possibility, it lets the light in, and behind that door is a garden, wild and alive, full of wings and whispers and beginnings. You only have to open it. You only have to care. And maybe, just maybe, on a summer evening years from now, a child will sit in that garden. The air will hum again, fireflies will flicker, bees will drift lazily from bloom to bloom, and the child will not know what was almost lost. They will only know the world as it should be, full of soft sounds, small wings, and the quiet miracle of life returning. Beneath the crust of frozen lakes and the silence of snowy woods, life holds its breath. The ice above is thick and still, a pale lid over a world that seems asleep. But below it, in the cold blackness, something ancient stirs. There are creatures here that never rise to the surface, that never see the sky. They move slowly, with a rhythm that matches the pulse of winter. They do not fear the freeze, they wait through it. They know, in the way only nature can know, that life is not always loud or fast or warm. Sometimes it is the quiet patience of stillness. In the Arctic, where the sun disappears for months at a time, mosses and lichens cling to rocks like faded memories. Under snowdrifts, frogs freeze completely, heart stopped, blood turned to crystal, and yet come spring they leap again. Seeds buried for decades in the permafrost sleep without dreams, waiting for the moment warmth touches them. Even in Antarctica, in lakes hidden beneath miles of ice, tiny microbes drift in darkness. They have not seen the sun in millions of years, and still they live. There is a breath beneath the ice, faint but steady. It reminds us that extinction is not always the end. Sometimes it is a pause, a long and silent waiting. We often think of extinction as fire and thunder, as the crash of a meteor or the roar of a volcano. But much of life fades in quieter ways. A species grows rare, and then rarer still. A warming stream dries. A snowy season ends too soon. A forest once thick with ferns becomes a field. And the creatures that live there must choose, move, adapt, or sleep. Some disappear, others change. But some, the most ancient, retreat. They go underground, into caves, into soil, into silence. They wait out the end in hope of a beginning. It is not survival in the usual sense. It is something softer, a surrender, a faith that time will return. Take the Siberian salamander. It can freeze for years, becoming stiff as stone, and yet live. Or the Arctic woolly bear moth, whose caterpillar stage can last over a decade, freezing and thawing each year until one day finally it becomes a moth. These creatures do not fight time. They listen to it. They move with it. And in doing so, they teach us that life's greatest strength is not speed or power, but endurance. The breath beneath the ice is a slow breath, but it is strong. Even plants know how to wait. In the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, hidden deep inside a Norwegian mountain, thousands of seeds from around the world are kept cold and still. It is a vault against extinction, a backup for life. But long before humans built this vault, the Earth had its own versions. Seeds that fell from trees long vanished. Spores frozen in amber. Tiny fragments of DNA caught in glacial mud. These are the Earth's memory. And memory, like breath, can be held for a very long time. So when we think of extinction, perhaps we should also think of dormancy. Of silence not as death, but as preparation. In the coldest places, under the thickest ice, life is not gone. It is gathering. Quietly, softly, waiting for the moment the sun returns and the melt begins. That moment may come slowly or not at all, but life will wait as long as it must. It always has, and when it does rise again, it does so gently, not in explosions but in whispers. A sprout, a stir, a breath. Let's drift deeper now into the stillness beneath the frost. Not to escape the cold, but to understand its story. In the quiet spaces of winter, nature performs one of its most delicate balancing acts. Each snowflake that falls is not just a crystal but a blanket, trapping warmth beneath it. The ground may freeze, but just below the surface the roots of trees hold fast, their cells slowed to the tempo of ice. This is not lifelessness, this is patience made physical. For life, cold is not an enemy, it is a rhythm, a slowing down, a letting go of hurry, of growth, of noise. In the boreal forests of the north, trees have learned to rest. They pull their energy inward. Sap thickens. Leaves are dropped like burdens too heavy to carry through the cold. Deep inside, the heartbeat of the forest slows. Underneath, the soil is not dead, it is dreaming. Microbes curl into dormant states. Insects tuck themselves under bark or into logs, their breath nearly stopped. Even animals sleep differently. The bear, curled deep in its den, breathes only a few times each minute. The Arctic ground squirrel, buried in tunnels below the permafrost, lets its body drop below freezing yet survives. They have all mastered the art of waiting, and this waiting is not without purpose. Dormancy is survival's softest shape. It is how species bridge the harshest seasons. It is how trees survive droughts, and how seeds survive fires. Even in tropical rainforests, where warmth is constant, some plants hold their growth in check, waiting for the return of rains. Across the planet, from deserts to tundras, life knows how to pause, how to retreat into stillness, like a song that lowers its volume but never stops playing. This is why some scientists say extinction is not always extinction. Sometimes it is deep rest. In Lake Vostok, buried beneath Antarctica's ice sheet, a hidden lake exists, sealed off from the surface for over 15 million years. When researchers sampled its waters, they found life, tiny microbes, adapted to total darkness, extreme pressure, and bitter cold. How they survived so long in such conditions remains one of the great mysteries of biology. But survive they did. This hidden world reminds us that life does not need our permission or our warmth. It finds a way in the dark and makes its own light, its own rules, its own soft pulse. It breathes beneath the ice. Even coral reefs, known for their colour and warmth, have secrets of survival. When waters grow too warm, corals bleach, a warning sign of distress. But deep below, in colder water, ancient corals grow slowly, holding on. And some reefs regenerate after years of rest when conditions soften again. The same can be said for prairies scorched by drought, or forests levelled by fire. Seeds buried deep will sometimes wait decades before germinating. Their shells are thick, their patience thicker still. In these quiet places, hope is not loud or certain. It is gentle. It whispers rather than shouts. It says, not now, but maybe later. Not today, but someday. And that may be as powerful because it carries forward the chance of return. The possibility of green after grey, of wings after winter, of songs after silence. For humans, waiting feels like stillness. But for nature, waiting is movement in slow motion. Ice expands, roots adjust. DNA copies itself one strand at a time. Nothing is truly stopped. It is simply slower than we are used to seeing. And in this slowness is a kind of wisdom, the knowledge that all things pass, even the coldest seasons. That survival does not always look like strength. Sometimes it looks like stillness. So next time you see a snowy hill or a frozen stream, remember, there is life beneath it. Not in spite of the ice, but because of it. Ice slows decay. It preserves. It gives space for renewal to gather its strength. Beneath glaciers, rivers of meltwater flow in hidden channels. Beneath snowbanks, vole families dig tunnels lined with grass. Beneath frozen fields, tulip bulbs sleep, dreaming of spring. Life is there, quiet, waiting, breathing the breath of 1,000,000 years of memory. Extinction may seem final, but deep inside the Earth's quiet places, life remembers, and memory in nature is a seed that waits. Now the sun begins to return, slowly stretching its light across the cold edges of the world. The ice softens, not all at once, but in gentle layers. Drops form on branches. A crack appears in the pond surface. Air stirs beneath the snow. Something begins to shift, so faint at first that only the soil can feel it. But life knows. Life has been waiting. And when the moment comes, not loud, not sudden, but steady, it begins again. A bud swells, a root reaches, a wing unfolds. Renewal, after the long breath of stillness, has begun. We often imagine recovery as something swift and heroic, but nature shows us another path, the path of slow resilience. In the tundra, mosses awaken first, soaking in the slanting sunlight. Their green is pale at first, like a memory returning. Soon lichen follows, then the smallest insects, still sluggish from sleep. A snow flea, no bigger than a grain of sand, hops across the melting surface, its dark shape dancing against the white. It has waited all winter for this. The chorus of spring begins not with songbirds, but with these tiny beings, stretching toward warmth in silence. And still deeper, seeds begin to stir. Seeds that have rested for years, or even centuries, feel the change in temperature, in moisture, in light. They open, not like an explosion, but like a sigh. The first root presses into earth softened by a melt. The first shoot curves upward, seeking air. In seed vaults and wild soils, in cracks in rocks and corners of old gardens, these sprouts rise, soft testaments to life's patience. Some are rare, some thought extinct. Yet here they are again, proving that what once seemed lost was only waiting. This is how life returns from the edge. Not in grand parades or sudden bloom, but in the quiet commitment of countless small beings choosing, again, to grow. The breath beneath the ice becomes a wind through the trees. The stillness becomes movement. The memory becomes a future. Insects that overwintered beneath bark begin to crawl free. Amphibians thaw and croak their slow songs in vernal pools. And above them birds return, guided not only by instinct, but by the signals of returning life below. It is not one species, but all together, weaving the tapestry of renewal. In some places, scientists assist this return. In the Arctic, researchers replant tundra mosses to restore damaged ground. In alpine meadows, they scatter wildflower seeds from helicopters to mimic the way wind once did. In laboratories, ancient DNA is studied, not to rewrite the past, but to better protect the future. And in greenhouses around the world, seeds pulled from frozen stores, some older than living memory, are coaxed into life. Tomatoes from the Andes, rice from long-lost paddies, desert plants once found only in footnotes. Their green leaves carry history in every cell. But perhaps the most important part of this story isn't the science, it's the feeling. The understanding that extinction and renewal are not separate, they are part of the same breath. That loss teaches us to cherish, and silence teaches us to listen. The return of life is a slow celebration, a thaw that becomes a flood, a shadow that becomes a shape, then colour, then motion. And in every return is a reminder that life is not gone, only delayed. There's a lake in Alaska where frogs sing again after years of silence. There's a forest in northern Russia where seeds once buried beneath melted ice have grown into blooming plants. There's a cave in Canada where beetles, unseen for decades, were found crawling along the stone. These are not miracles. They are the natural consequence of time, care, and survival. They are what happens when we make space, when we believe in the quiet power of waiting. And so we step back into the sunlight, knowing now what waits beneath the frost. The breath beneath the ice is not a whisper of death, it is a promise. It is the pause between heartbeats, the quiet before the song. The earth, even in its coldest places, carries within it the soft beginning of everything. And as long as life remembers how to wait, there will always be something waiting to begin again. In the heart of the earth, where green shadows stretch like echoes and leaves rustle with ancient memory, a forest stands that seems eternal. But even the oldest trees forget. Even the soil forgets. What once grew in abundance may now lie beneath the roots as silence. Forests do not mourn loudly, they simply shift. A tree falls, moss takes hold, new life rises, and the past is folded into the present. It is here, in this quiet turning, that the forest shows its deepest truth. It forgets in order to remember. There was a time when forests blanketed much of the world. They reached across continents, a thick green breath connecting lands and skies. Mammoths roamed beneath canopies. Birds that no longer exist sang from branches now gone. Even the trees themselves were different. Chestnuts once ruled the eastern lands of North America, stretching like a living cathedral. Then a fungus arrived, carried by humans unknowingly. In a few short decades, billions of chestnut trees were gone. The forest did not scream, it simply changed. Oaks filled the space, maples spread. The silence of the chestnut became part of the song of something new. Beneath every forest floor lies a memory, not written in ink, but in carbon, in spores, in the language of roots. Mycorrhizal fungi stretch through soil like a nervous system, connecting tree to tree, carrying not only nutrients but messages. When one tree is attacked by pests, it can warn its neighbours. When one tree dies, its stored sugars can be shared with the living. This network, unseen and soft, holds the forest together. And within it are traces of the past, signals shaped by generations of loss and regrowth. A tree planted today may grow differently depending on what once stood where it now takes root. But memory is not perfect. When a species vanishes, its role disappears too. The forest forgets how to feed it. Birds that once spread certain seeds go missing. Insects that once pollinated rare flowers are no longer there. And the flowers fade. Each absence leaves a small silence. One silence becomes two, and slowly the composition changes. The forest remains alive, but it is not the same song. Still, forests are not only places of loss, they are also places of resilience. After fires, new sprouts emerge from ash-blackened soil. Some seeds need flame to open. In Australia, the eucalyptus holds its seeds in woody pods that crack only in heat. In California, the lodgepole pine relies on fire to clear the canopy so its cones can fall and grow. Fire is not always destruction, sometimes it is memory made light. A clearing of the old to make space for the ancient to return. When humans abandon land, old farmland, forgotten villages, ruined roads, forests often reclaim it. Slowly grasses move in, then shrubs, then saplings. This process, called ecological succession, is the forest remembering itself. Not with exactness, but with pattern, with rhythm, with instinct. It may not bring back the same species, but it brings back the shape of things as shade, humus, undergrowth, canopy. It is a kind of reknitting, a soft reconstruction, and we are learning to help. In Costa Rica, corridors of forest are replanted to reconnect scattered wildlife. In Europe, former mining grounds have become woods again. In parts of Asia, ancient forests are being restored tree by tree, not for lumber, but for memory. Each seedling planted is an act of trust, that the soil remembers, that the sky will still offer rain, that the forest, even in forgetting, will find its way back to itself. Forests teach us that memory is not about keeping everything unchanged. It is about holding on to the pattern of life, the way things connect, grow, fall and grow again, the way light moves through leaves, the way roots find water even in drought, the way an old stump becomes a nursery for something new. In forgetting, the forest lets go of pain. In remembering, it reaches for hope. And so, beneath every step we take on a forest floor, there are layers of stories. Some lost, some buried, some waiting to rise. The leaves may look the same, the wind may feel unchanged, but the forest you walk through is always becoming, always reshaping, always remembering softly. Let's wander further beneath the canopy, where the sunlight filters in broken pieces, where moss clings to stone and bark like an old embrace. Here, memory is not written with words or markers. It is stored in rings and roots, in the shape of a clearing, in the absence of a sound. When a forest forgets, it does not erase. It simply allows space for something else to grow. Even decay is a kind of preparation. A fallen log is not the dead wood. It is a bridge between generations, a place for fungi to bloom, for insects to feast, for seeds to find shadow and moisture. This is how the forest writes its future, layer by patient layer. In tropical forests, trees have been known to survive for centuries, their trunks wrapped with vines, their limbs home to monkeys, birds and orchids. But when one tree falls, it does not fall alone. The light that streams into the gap changes the chemistry of the soil. Plants that once lived in shade now stretch upwards, eager. The animals shift their paths, and sometimes, in that shaft of light, a seed germinates that has waited for years in the dark. The forest adjusts. The memory of what once stood is not lost. It is absorbed, transformed, carried forward in new forms. Sometimes the forgetting is forced. Clear-cutting removes not only trees, but the entire web beneath, the fungi, the beetles, the soft hum of the forest floor. And when new trees are planted quickly, in rows, in places that were once wild, the land may not know what to do with them. These trees grow, but they do not speak to the soil the same way. They don't hum with the same life. The forest is there, but it is quiet in the wrong way. Memory has been interrupted. Healing takes longer when the pattern is broken. But even broken patterns can be mended. There are forests today regrowing over battlefields, over roads no longer used, over towns that were once filled with noise. In these places, nature moves with cautious grace. It begins as with lichens, those hardy crusts of life that can grow on concrete and bone. Then come grasses, insects and birds. Slowly, a forgotten place becomes green again. It may not be the same forest that stood before, but it is still a forest. And in that difference there is still beauty. In Japan, the practice of Satayama teaches a way of coexisting with the forest, not dominating it, but living alongside it gently. Villagers harvest wood and mushrooms without clearing everything. They plant trees with care, respecting the way each species grows best. In doing so, they become part of the forest's memory, not just observers but participants. Their footsteps blend into the hum of bees, the call of thrushes, the rustle of leaves, and in return the forest gives not only resources but peace, rhythm, breath. And then there is the forest floor itself, soft with generations of fallen leaves. This layer, called duff, is more than debris. It is living memory. Each leaf that falls feeds the next. Worms tunnel through it, turning it into rich soil. Spores rise from it, drifting upward to begin again. If you kneel and touch it, you can feel time, not linear time, but circular, the cycle of growth and return, of presence and loss and presence again. It cradles the roots and nourishes the seeds. It is, quite literally, the forest remembering itself. Even fire, so often feared, plays a role. In many ecosystems, fire clears out the undergrowth, lets sunlight in and cracks open the seeds of certain pines. Some trees have bark thick enough to survive flame. Others perish, but their fall feeds what follows. In the years after a fire, the forest does not rush to rebuild. It waits. It lets the first colonizers, the hardy, the wild, the brave, come first. Grasses, shrubs, fungi. And then slowly the trees return, not all the same ones, not always in the same way, but enough to begin a new chapter. The forest teaches us that loss is not the end of memory, that forgetting is not the same as vanishing, that each change holds within it the possibility of renewal, and that what seems erased may in time emerge again in a different form, softer, wiser, and deeply rooted. Now imagine walking through a forest at twilight where the air is cool and still and the light leans soft against the trunks of tall trees. Each footstep presses gently into the earth, and beneath that earth lie the memories of what once was. You pass a patch of saplings growing in a circle, and you do not realize that long ago there was a single massive tree here, its roots still feeding the new. You hear a bird call overhead, perhaps a thrush or a warbler, and you don't know that its nest rests in a branch that sprouted from fire-burned wood. But the forest knows, it remembers not through language, but through rhythm, through what it grows, what it lets go, and what it quietly holds. In Germany's Black Forest, researchers once found pollen from trees that had been extinct for thousands of years, embedded in layers of peat beneath the soil. These microscopic grains told stories of climates long changed, animals long gone, forests that once swayed where cities now stand. But they also showed that, in some places, those ancient trees are returning, reintroduced, reseeded, rising again. In these layers of time, the earth speaks gently. Nothing is ever truly lost if its seed still sleeps somewhere. The Amazon, often called the lungs of the earth, has forgotten and remembered itself many times. Long before modern deforestation, ancient people lived there in great numbers, planting fruit trees, building soil, shaping the land, détente. When they disappeared, the forest didn't collapse. It simply grew around their memory. Today, in parts of the Amazon untouched by chainsaws, scientists find groves of trees that only exist because someone long ago placed them there. These are not untouched lands. They are places that remember the touch of hands, of intention, of life. Even in the deepest scars, the forest tries to remember. In Chernobyl, where humans fled after radiation filled the air, trees now grow over cracked pavement. Wolves roam, birds nest in old buildings, elk drink from silent rivers. It is not a return to what was, but it is a kind of healing, a reminder that the forest does not need perfection. It needs time and space and the absence of harm. It will do the rest. Slowly, in its own language. That language is made of wind through leaves, of roots winding deeper, of mushrooms pushing up through bark. It's the hush that falls in snowfall, the chatter of squirrels, the hum of bees in a hollow log. Every sound is part of a memory being rewritten. Every silence is not emptiness. It's the forest breathing, choosing, waiting. The forest does not rush. It does not forget lightly. It carries what it can, and in what it cannot carry, it plants something new. For us, this offers more than beauty. It offers a lesson. That healing does not mean returning everything to how it once was. It means creating the conditions where life, in whatever form it takes, can begin again. That even if we have lost the exact map, we can still walk the path. That even if the tree is gone, its children can rise. The memory of a forest is not one tree, or even 100. It is the way they connect, the way they fall, the way they rise again. And so when we plant a tree, when we protect a grove, when we let the underbrush grow wild, we are not just acting for today. We are writing into the soil a future someone else may walk through. A path of green, a hush of wind, a forest that may forget our names, but will remember the gift of space, of care, of return. The forest that forgets is not lost. It is only waiting for the right moment to remember again. And when it does, it will not shout or weep. It will whisper through leaves and limbs and light. And we, if we are quiet enough, will hear it. Out in the open desert, where the wind sings through the stone and the ground glows with memory, there lie shapes that no longer move. Bones, curled and silent, resting where once they ran or flew. They are not loud. They do not call attention to themselves, but they speak in a way that only time can understand. A tooth buried in red clay, a rib polished smooth by centuries of wind, a skull half hidden in the dust. These are the echoes of lives that came before. The earth remembers them not in monuments or songs, but in fossils, time's gentle handwriting pressed into stone. Every fossil is a pause, a moment caught between movement and memory. The shell of an ammonite curled tight like a galaxy, the footprint of a bird that no longer flies, the outline of a fern that once caught the morning light. These relics whisper the shape of what was. They tell of creatures whose names we never knew, whose colours we'll never see, but whose existence shaped everything we now are. For extinction is not always silence. Sometimes it is a chorus left behind in stone. Long ago dinosaurs ruled the land, some towering, some small, some with feathers, some with armour. They walked in forests that no longer grow, under skies filled with strange stars. When the great extinction came, many vanished in an instant, swept away by fire, ash, and darkness. But not all was lost. Birds are the living echoes of dinosaurs, carrying forward the rhythm of wings and the beat of hollow bones. In every sparrow there is a hint of a time when giants roamed. Extinction leaves behind more than bones. It leaves gaps, in food chains, in ecosystems, in memory. The loss of one species reshapes the entire web of life. When the mammoths disappeared from the tundra, the grasslands changed. The cold grew deeper. The rhythm of growth shifted. Trees spread differently. Flowers bloomed at the wrong time. The mammoth did not just vanish. It took with it a pattern, a breath, a song, and the earth in its quiet way adjusted. But bones do not only speak of endings, they tell of how long life has tried, of how many forms it has taken, of how resilience is not always about survival, but about effort, about trying again and again in new shapes, new ways, across millions of years. Trilobites once crawled across ocean floors in vast numbers. Now they are gone, but their design echoes in the shells of crabs, in the armour of beetles. The spiral form of ancient shells lives on in snails and nautiluses. Nothing is ever completely lost, it transforms. And some bones lie closer than we think. In tar pits and caves, the remains of saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, and dire wolves lie buried just beneath the surface. These creatures lived not in distant prehistory, but alongside the first humans. We shared landscapes. We watched each other. We shaped one another's paths, and when they disappeared, their stories remained, not only in the bones, but in the dreams of people who remembered them. Ancient carvings, cave paintings, the shape of myths. We have always listened to the bones, even if we didn't know how to name them. In modern times, paleontologists dig slowly, carefully brushing away dirt like turning the pages of a buried book. Every fossil they find adds to the great unfolding story of life. Some are as small as a grain of rice, others as large as a building, but all hold equal weight in the memory of the world. Because each one answers a question we didn't know we were asking. What did the earth sound like then? What did it feel like to breathe that air? What kind of footsteps echoed on that ancient ground? And sometimes in the dust we find warnings. Layers of extinction marked by sudden changes, a sharp line of iridium from an asteroid's touch, or a wave of bones piled in the shadow of climate shifts. These records tell us that life is strong but not unbreakable, that beauty can fade quickly if not protected, that the balance we live within is delicate and shaped by forces both vast and small. Yet bones also tell us this: life continues. After every extinction, something new emerges. After the dinosaurs came mammals. After the great dying of the Permian came forests reborn. And though each loss changes the song, the melody goes on. The earth hums still, and within that hum are all the voices that ever were, fossilized in silence but never truly gone. Let us step deeper into the dust now, where memory is held not by minds but by stone. In deserts, in cliffs, beneath mountains and riverbeds, the earth keeps its own library. Fossils are not rare treasures. They are everywhere, hidden just below the skin of the world. The problem is not their absence, but our blindness. We pass over stones shaped like shells, over layers of sediment folded by time, never knowing that beneath our feet lies a record millions of years long. Every layer of rock tells a chapter, some written in ripples, some in ash, some in bone. In the limestone of Wyoming, scientists once found fish fossils lying perfectly flat, all turned in the same direction, An ancient school caught mid-swim, frozen by a sudden shift in their lake, their fins still outstretched, their eyes still open. This was not a slow death, but an instant pause, a still frame in the long film of Earth. In another place in China, entire feathered dinosaurs are preserved with their wings spread, mid-flight or mid-fall, caught in volcanic ash like ghosts of movement. These fossils do not just speak, they perform. They hold motion in stone, and yet not every fossil is so dramatic. Some are fragments, a single tooth, a claw, the curve of a spine, but even these carry immense weight. From one tooth we can learn what an animal ate, how it lived, what hunted it, what it hunted. From a single toe bone we can guess how it walked, whether it climbed, whether it ran. And from the dirt around the fossil we read the weather of that time, the heat, the rain, the presence of plants or other animals. In this way, the Earth becomes a storyteller far more detailed than any human memory could ever hold. Some bones are even older than bones themselves. The first life to leave a fossil wasn't made of bone. It was soft, like jellyfish or bacteria. Their impressions remain as shadows in rock, subtle and smooth. No skeleton, no face, just a ripple, a pattern, a moment. It reminds us that life does not need to be grand to matter, that even the quietest creature can leave a mark lasting longer than empires. These ancient remains are not just about animals. Plants too leave stories. Fossilized leaves show the shape of forgotten forests. Their edges tell of the climate, smooth for warmth, jagged for cold. Pine cones, fern spores, pollen, all held in stone, show us that Earth has worn many faces. It has been warmer, colder, wetter, and drier. It has seen swamps where now there are cities, forests where now there are seas, and deserts that were once green. These changes came slowly once, but now they come fast. And that is why the bones matter more than ever. They are not warnings carved in capital letters. They are soft echoes, gentle reminders. They say, look what was, look what might be again, or not at all. They do not beg, they do not shout, they simply lie still, offering truth to any who listen. Some scientists now use this fossil record to study modern extinction. They compare what's being lost now to what was lost before, and what followed. Often, after great extinctions, life returns. But it takes time, millions of years. The Earth recovers, but the world does not return to what it was. What vanished stays gone. What replaces it is something new. This is both hope and grief. We are not at the end of all things, but we are in the middle of something large, something we may not yet see clearly. Just as the mammoth did not know it was the last of its kind, we do not always know what moment we stand in. The bones may only tell us later. And yet we are also the first species to read these stories while still writing our own. We can look at the fossils and say, we do not want to be a line in the stone, not yet. We can protect what lives now, not because it will last forever, but because it is alive today, because it sings, because it moves, because it breathes, and because every breath carries forward the long, slow memory of life. In this way, bones teach not just science but humility. They remind us that time is vast, that we are small, and that smallness is not weakness. It is permission to care, to pay attention, to change. We may never walk beside the creatures we study in museums, but we walk in the shadow of their paths, and with every step we choose what future bones will say about us. Now imagine the dust settling gently in the hollow of a ribcage that once held a heart. Not a heart like ours, perhaps, but a heart that beat, that moved blood, that gave shape to the silence now resting in the bones. These remains are not ruins. They are echoes. Echoes of life that breathed, hunted, hid, fed, fought, and then disappeared into time. But within each echo lies a truth. Extinction is not just a vanishing, it is also a passing. And what it passes into is us. In the Gobi Desert, a fossilized nest still holds the curve of a mother dinosaur shielding her eggs. Her bones curled protectively, her head lowered in a posture of defense or love. This is not just science, it is tenderness held in stone. It tells us that emotions, instincts, bonds are not new. They are ancient. They shaped the world long before we did. And though the mother and her young never lived to see what came after, their story waits, silently speaking to those who stop long enough to listen. In Argentina, scientists uncovered the remains of one of the largest creatures to ever walk the earth, a titanosaur so massive its leg bone stood taller than a human. Yet this giant too is gone, not because of weakness, but because the world it belonged to changed. And that is how most extinctions happen, not through failure, but through shift. Climate changes, landscapes shift, seas rise, forests fall, what once thrived no longer fits. And so the bones are left behind as proof that strength alone is never enough. Adaptation, balance, time, these are the real architects of survival. We live in a moment where bones are still being written. Coral reefs bleaching into silence, insects disappearing without fanfare, songs going quiet in forests that once overflowed with sound. These vanishings often leave no fossil, no footprint, no stone and memory. And that may be the most haunting extinction of all, the one that leaves no trace, the one where the echo's too soft to hear, even when we try. But in knowing this, we gain a responsibility, to be the memory, to become the storytellers. Museums, once dusty halls of the past, are becoming spaces of connection. Children stare into the eye sockets of a saber-toothed cat and imagine its world. Artists paint the wings of pterosaurs with colour and light, and paleontologists kneel in ancient soils, hoping to find a single tooth that unlocks an entire ecosystem. These are not acts of nostalgia. They are acts of hope. They show us that what once was can shape what still might be. And there are signs of revival. In Siberia, researchers study frozen mammoth remains with dreams of returning them, or something like them, to the tundra. In labs, DNA from vanished birds is preserved. Not to undo extinction, but to understand it. To give us a window into what balance looked like once, and what it might look like again. It is not resurrection we seek, but restoration, of pattern, of memory, of relationship. Even the simplest fossil, a spiral shell on a riverbank, connects us to the deep-sea creatures of prehistory. Holding it, you hold time itself, not the clock time of minutes, but the earth time of eons, and in that there is something calming, something grounding, a reminder that the story is long, that we are part of it, and that while we may not prevent every loss, we can choose how we respond. So we build sanctuaries, we protect habitats, we teach children the names of birds and bugs and beasts, we tell stories not only of the past, but of what could come next. We look at the bones not as tombstones, but as chapters, as beginnings, as the foundation upon which new songs can rise, and one day, far in the future, someone may hold our fossils. They may find our tools, our footprints, our fingerprints pressed into clay or ice or rock, and they will wonder, what did we care about? What did we save? What did we let slip away? The answer begins now, not in dust, but in choice, in reverence, in action. The bones have spoken. Now it is our turn. Beneath the soil where light never touches and silence is complete, there are seeds that have waited longer than memory. They lie curled and still, hard as stones or soft as dust, invisible to the eye but brimming with life. They are not dead. They are not gone. They are only sleeping. Wrapped in the dark, they hold within them the shape of leaves never seen, of flowers never bloomed, of fruit never tasted. These are the time travellers of the plant world, seeds that sleep for decades, centuries, even millennia, waiting for the moment when the world becomes gentle again. Not all seeds are made for such long waiting. Most sprout quickly, taking root in the soft breath of spring, unfolding green arms to the sun. But others are built differently. They wear thick coats like armour. They resist water, heat, cold. They do not guess. They wait for the signal, a flood, a fire, a thaw, a silence, that tells them it is time. Until then, they stay perfectly still, as if holding their breath. Inside, nothing moves. And yet, within that stillness is everything. A root, a stem, a future tree, the scent of fruit, the colour of petals, a sleeping map of what might be. In Israel, a date palm seed was found buried deep in the ruins of Masada, a fortress lost to time. It was over 2,000 years old. Scientists planted it, unsure if it would grow. For weeks nothing happened. Then slowly a crack appeared. A shoot emerged. The seed had remembered. It had waited through the rise and fall of empires, through wind and war and dust, and still it grew. They named the tree Methuselah, after the oldest man in Scripture, and now it stands in sunlight again, its fronds reaching into a sky it had never seen before. There are seeds from Arctic tundras, frozen in permafrost since mammoths roamed. Some were preserved by ancient squirrels, tucked into burrows like treasure, then forgotten. Thousands of years later, scientists found them, warmed them, planted them, and they bloomed. Their flowers opened as if no time had passed at all. These blossoms, once lost to history, now sway in the breeze, delicate reminders that life's memory is long and deep. Seeds do not mark time like we do. They do not count years. They measure moisture, warmth, darkness, vibration. Their clocks are elemental. And in this way, they teach us a kind of patience far beyond human grasp. They do not rush. They do not doubt. They wait with perfect stillness until the world is right again. And then, quietly, without ceremony, they grow. But not all seeds are found in ruins or ice. Some are found in jars, in drawers, in forgotten gardens. In the 19th century, a botanist buried a bottle of seeds in Michigan soil, sealed tight, intending for future scientists to dig them up and see what still lived. Every few decades, the bottle is unearthed. The seeds are tested, and still some grow. In the dark, beneath layers of time, their tiny lives remained intact, untouched by centuries of change. There is something sacred about this, something that speaks to resilience not through resistance but through readiness. A seed does not fight the world, it listens to it, it waits for its song, and when it hears that song it rises. These ancient seeds tell us that extinction is not always final, that some things lie dormant rather than destroyed, that recovery is not always about invention, sometimes it is about uncovering, about remembering, about planting again what was once known. In their small, quiet way, seeds are keepers of possibility. They do not ask for much, just soil, just time, just a bit of light. And when they rise, they bring back more than green. They bring scent, shadow, shelter. They bring bees and birds, fruit and food, breath and shade. A single seed can become a forest, a meal, a medicine, a memory made real again. And in this, they remind us that hope too can lie buried, small, still forgotten, and yet remain alive. Let us walk now through the soil, not with our feet, but with our understanding, deep into the hidden world where seeds wait in silence. Beneath the surface, the soil is not still. It moves with invisible life. Threads of fungi stretching like thought, insects carving tunnels, microbes dancing in microscopic clouds. It is in this rich, pulsing darkness that seeds lie. Each one is a quiet equation. Sun plus time plus rain equals bloom. But until those variables arrive, it remains patient. The world may change, the climate may shift, but the seed stays true to its ancient programming. Wait, be still, survive. There is a story told in fire. In forests across the world, in Australia, in California, in the Mediterranean, certain trees have evolved to require flame. Their cones are sealed with resin, so thick that only the heat of wildfire can melt it, releasing the seeds inside. These seeds do not fear destruction, they are born from it. The fire clears the canopy, feeds the soil with ash, and the seeds, released at last, fall into a world reborn. In this way, even fire is not the end, it is a door, and the seed is the key. In wetlands, seeds can rest beneath layers of silt for centuries. When floods come, they rise again. In deserts, seeds may wait through 100 dry years, surviving in cracked clay until one long rain finally awakens them. Even in cities, in the cracks of sidewalks, in forgotten gutters, seeds find their chance. A poppy between bricks, a tree on a rooftop, a vine curling up steel. They do not complain about where they land. They try, they stretch, they grow. This persistence is not loud, it's not demanding. It is soft, almost invisible, but it is powerful beyond measure. Seeds do not hope, they act. When the time is right, they open. When it is not, they rest. And in that rest, there is no shame, only wisdom. Trees like the bristlecone pine, some of the oldest living beings on Earth, come from seeds that germinate only when conditions are perfect. These trees have watched mountains crumble and return to dust. They have stood in storms and silence alike, and all began from a single waiting seed. In seed vaults across the world, in Norway's icy mountains, in the deserts of Arizona, in deep underground chambers, we are storing the genetic memory of plants, not just for beauty or curiosity, but for protection, in case of catastrophe, in case the world forgets. Each vial contains hundreds, sometimes thousands of seeds. Wheat from Syria, rice from India, beans from Peru. These vaults are insurance, yes, but also faith. Faith that we may one day need to begin again, and when we do, the seeds will be ready. But even without vaults, the Earth has its own storage. Permafrost, clay pots, volcanic ash. In these places, seeds sleep deeply, waiting through the long winters of history. And when they finally emerge, it is as if a voice from the past has spoken in green. A flower not seen for 10,000 years blooms again under the sun. Not because we forced it, but because we offered it the right place, the right breath, the right quiet. We often think of survival as strength, as resistance, as power. But seeds show us another way. Survival can be stillness. It can be softness. It can be the ability to pause and trust in the future. They do not grow taller by pushing harder. They grow taller by growing exactly when it is time. Not before, not after. This teaches us something about ourselves, about the need to rest, to wait, to trust in the seasons of our own lives. That not all moments are for blooming. Some are for gathering strength in the dark. Some are for holding the blueprint of our dreams close, quietly, until the world shifts, and we are called to rise. The soil beneath our feet is filled with these lessons. It is not a graveyard, it is a cradle. It holds not what is lost, but what is possible, what is next, what is waiting. And in that waiting is more hope than any loud promise, because the seed does not promise, it prepares. Now picture a hand holding a seed, small enough to balance on a fingertip, yet old enough to have watched civilizations rise and fall. This seed doesn't speak, but it carries a language older than words, a blueprint of roots and stems, a memory of seasons, a promise written in the quiet curves of its shell. And when that seed is placed into soil, when the sun finds it and the rain touches it, and the wind whispers across the land, it remembers. Slowly, invisibly, it begins to open. What emerges is not just a sprout, it is the return of something that once was, carried through time in stillness. In community gardens and fields once left barren, people have begun planting ancient seeds. Heritage corn in Mexico, purple carrots from Central Asia, rice that once grew in Himalayan valleys. These seeds do not just produce food, they produce connection. They bring back taste, texture, and tradition. They allow communities to reclaim knowledge once nearly forgotten. Each seed holds not only biology, but culture, resilience, and story. When these plants grow, they feed more than bodies. They feed memory. Sometimes renewal begins with just one. In India, a single farmer saved native rice varieties that were disappearing. In Syria, during conflict, scientists risked their lives to send seed samples to global vaults. In Ethiopia, women passed down hand-collected seeds through generations, guarding them like treasure. These quiet acts, unnoticed by most, have kept whole ecosystems of flavour, nutrition, and life alive. Seeds, though small, need caretakers. They need us, not just to plant them, but to listen to what they bring. And what they bring is wonder. In the Galapagos, seeds ride on ocean currents, arriving like messages in bottles. On remote islands, birds carry seeds in their feathers and droppings, planting forests as they fly. In deserts, wind-blown seeds catch on the edges of rocks and begin green miracles in the sand. This movement is slow, invisible, unplanned. Yet over time it reshapes entire landscapes. A seed knows no map. It only knows how to try. Even in cities, the seed returns. In abandoned lots, wildflowers emerge through concrete. In gutters, moss spreads like soft green ink. On rooftops, tomato plants flourish in broken buckets. These are not accidents. These are reminders that life will reach for any chance it is given. That hope, like a seed, does not need perfect conditions, only the absence of harm, a little light and time. Children learn to plant in schoolyards, watching the first green curl from the soil. Elders in villages teach seed saving like a sacred ritual. Scientists document lost varieties and send them across continents for safety. Artists paint seed shapes. Writers tell stories about seed journeys. In every corner of the world, someone is holding a seed, hoping it will grow, and that hope spreads, slowly, quietly, like roots. What if our future was shaped not by speed, but by seeds? By the knowledge that small beginnings matter, that deep waiting is not wasted, that even the most damaged ground can, with care, offer life again. In a time of rushing, the seed reminds us to slow down, to plant something whose fruit we may never taste, to care for something whose shade we may never rest under, to believe that what we nurture now will become shelter, sweetness, and song for someone else. And when the plants rise, soft, green, trembling in the morning light of Bifi, we remember. We remember that time is not only something we pass through, it is something we carry, that the earth does not forget its rhythms, even when we do, that in every seed lies not only a past but a path forward, that regeneration is not a miracle, it is a choice, a cycle, a quiet unfolding. So let us plant, not just in gardens, but in hearts, in stories, in each other. Let us be seed bearers, seed savers, seed listeners, because one day, when the world feels cold or empty or tired, something we planted, some small waiting seed, will rise, and when it does, it will speak in bloom. Beneath the waves, where sunlight fades into blue and blue dissolves into black, the ocean holds its memories in motion. It doesn't write them in bones or stone, but in currents and echoes, in the long songs of whales, in the migration of fish across distances too vast to see. For millions of years, the sea has carried giants, creatures larger than buses, heavier than houses, gliding effortlessly through water with the grace of shadows. Many are gone now, but the ocean remembers. It remembers the pull of their bodies, the weight of their presence, the way they stirred the deep with every breath. Once, the seas were filled with leviathans. Giant marine reptiles like mosasaurs and ichthyosaurs ruled ancient oceans. They vanished long before the first humans looked out across a shoreline, but their echoes remain in the fossils pressed into sea cliffs, in the smooth stones along beaches that were once teeth or vertebrae. After them came whales, born from land-dwelling ancestors that returned to the water millions of years ago, adapting again to a life of weightlessness. Their bones tell this story clearly: legs that became flippers, nostrils that slid to the top of the head, hips that shrank until they disappeared. Each transformation is a whisper in the sea's long song. These whales, blue, humpback, grey, became the new giants, not predators of fish, but of distance. They migrated thousands of miles each year, from cold feeding grounds to warm birthing waters. In doing so, they shaped entire ecosystems. Their dives stirred nutrients from the deep. Their waste fertilized plankton blooms. Their songs carried through water farther than any shout on land. They were not just part of the ocean, they were architects of its rhythm, and yet, like so many giants, they were hunted. In the age of whaling, ships moved across oceans with harpoons, chasing not just oil or meat, but the giants themselves. Species that had once numbered in the millions were driven near extinction. The ocean for a time grew quieter. Fewer songs, fewer shadows. The waves still rolled, but something was missing beneath them. But the ocean, vast and deep, does not forget so easily. In places once emptied of whales, they are returning, slowly, cautiously. Blue whales have been seen again near Antarctica, their spouts rising like distant towers. Humpbacks breach off coastlines where none had been seen for decades. The children of survivors are finding their way home, and with them comes renewal. Fish stocks improve, coral reefs benefit, even carbon is pulled from the atmosphere and stored in the deep, aided by the movement of these gentle giants. Not all returns are easy. Ship traffic, noise, pollution, these still threaten the whales. Climate change alters their food sources, warms their nurseries, confuses their paths, and some species may never recover. The baiji, a freshwater dolphin from the Yangtze River, is now considered functionally extinct. Its last breath may already have passed, but even so its story still moves through water, in cousins, in currents, in the quiet knowledge that it once sang here. The ocean also remembers in the reefs. Coral skeletons tell us how the sea once pulsed with colour. In warmer ages, reefs bloomed in shapes we no longer see. As oceans acidify and bleach, some of those colours vanish again. But fragments survive, patches of reef that resist, adapt, cling to life. These coral outposts are like memories, holding the shape of what once was, offering clues for what might still be. Sharks, too, are ocean giants, though feared more than loved. Ancient species like the megalodon once swam in the same waters we sail now. There are teeth larger than a man's hand are found embedded in seabeds and cliffsides, reminders that the ocean once held monsters of unimaginable size. Today sharks are fewer, hunted not only for danger but for fins, trophies, fear. And yet without them the sea loses its balance. They are not just predators, they are sculptors of life below the surface. All of this, the whales, the corals, the sharks, the vanished giants, forms the gentle memory of the ocean. It is not a memory of names or dates, but of feeling, of weight, of presence. The way water once curled around a fin, the way plankton once bloomed in a trail behind a migrating pod, the way silence falls heavier when a song has stopped. And still the ocean waits. It holds the shape of vanished giants in its heart, not as loss alone, but as longing, as a soft invitation to remember with it, to swim, not only forward but back, to listen for the old songs, to learn the stories still held in salt and current and tide. Let us sink deeper now, past the crashing surf and the schools of darting fish, into the quiet places where the ocean thinks. In these slow depths time stretches. A moment becomes a century. The water cools and darkens, light fades. But memory lives. Whales still sing here, in low pulses that roll through the water like thunder in a dream. These songs are not only music, they are messages. Passed from one pod to another, changing slightly with each generation, they carry stories of migration, of birth, of feeding grounds, of danger. They are cultural memory encoded in sound, and they change as the ocean changes. When a giant dies, its body sinks slowly through the sea, a fall called whale fall. It becomes a world. First come the scavengers, sharks and eels, then smaller fish, then crabs, worms and the microbes that feast on the fat-rich bones for years. One whale can feed an entire ecosystem on the seafloor for decades. Even in death the giant gives. Even in silence it speaks. The ocean remembers this generosity and builds new life from it. In the twilight zones, those mid-layers of ocean where light dims and pressure grows, ancient species glide that have barely changed in millions of years. Coelacanths, once thought extinct, still drift near the coasts of Indonesia and South Africa, their fins moving like walking legs. Giant squid rise to hunt in inky blackness, their eyes the size of dinner plates, their bodies long as buses. These beings do not shout for attention. They simply endure, passing through ages, through extinctions, through ice and warmth and silence. They are the ocean's old stories still unfolding. Sometimes memory takes the shape of shells. Nautiluses, cousins to squid, have existed almost unchanged for 500 million years. Their spirals hold within them a record of growth, each chamber marking a new season, a new phase, a new tide. And in the deep mud, shelled creatures leave trails, delicate grooves like handwriting that tell of where they moved, how they fed, what followed. Even in their smallest motions the sea writes things down, but perhaps the most profound memories are held not in creatures, but in water itself. The ocean layers its past like pages. In the Arctic, ancient currents still flow, born from ice ages long ended. In the Pacific, deep water formed 1,000 years ago now rises to the surface. These currents carry not only salt and temperature, but nutrients, carbon, and the echoes of the climates they once knew. Oceanographers track them, learning how old water moves, what it brings, and what it remembers. In this way, the sea becomes not only a habitat, but a historian. And there are stories in the sand. In cores pulled from beneath the ocean floor, scientists read the past in layers of sediment, pollen grains, tiny shells, volcanic ash. These particles show when forests burned, when ice sheets melted, when plankton bloomed, when creatures disappeared. It is all there, pressed into the ocean's slow pulse. Some of these fossils are so small that hundreds could sit on a pinhead, yet they tell of worlds as grand as any story told by stone. But not all memory is so still. Some of it moves in waves, in migrations that stretch farther than any human journey. Leatherback turtles cross entire oceans to lay eggs on the same beach where they were born. Bluefin tuna, sleek and strong, swim from one continent to another and back again. These paths are passed down not by maps, but by instinct. Something in their bodies remembers the pull of the moon, the shape of currents, the taste of familiar waters. If the ocean is a book, these creatures are sentences written across its surface, always moving, always rewriting. And yet many of these lines are fading. Overfishing breaks the chains of migration. Noise pollution disrupts the songs. Warming waters push prey elsewhere. Coral reefs, once bright cities under the sea, bleach and crumble. These are not just losses of beauty, they are losses of memory. Places once filled with pattern and return become empty. The stories pause, the rhythms falter. Still, not all is lost. Marine reserves, when protected, begin to glow again with life. Fish return, coral regenerates, whales bring nutrients back to starving seas. In these places, the ocean begins to remember itself, not as a victim, but as a system of balance, of renewal, of deep and enduring patience. So we watch, we study, we learn, we record the songs, track the migrations, plant coral gardens, reduce the harm. Not because we can reverse all that's vanished, but because the ocean teaches us something few places can, that healing is slow, that memory is fragile, and that the past is never truly gone if we still listen to its waves. Now picture a coastline before dawn, when the sea is calm and the sky just beginning to soften. Waves lap gently at the shore, not with urgency, but with rhythm. The ocean has been breathing like this for millions of years. In that rhythm lies memory, not stored in words or images, but in movement, in chemistry, in the life that returns when space is given. The giants that once swam here may be gone, but their shadows still drift through the deep. Their stories have not ended. They have only become quieter, embedded in the DNA of fish, in the paths of currents, in the silence between the waves. Some stories rise again. In places where whales were hunted to near silence, their songs now grow louder year by year. Not as loud as they once were, but louder than yesterday. The babies born now are the children of survivors, of those who fled, who hid, who endured the long quiet. These young giants carry forward the memories their ancestors kept in bone and blood. They follow the old paths, they dive the old depths, they are memory becoming motion again. In the fjords of Iceland or off the coast of Patagonia, humans have stopped hunting and started watching. Whale watching has become a way to listen. People sit quietly in boats, waiting not for the harpoon but for the exhale, the great plume of mist as a whale surfaces. That sound, once feared, is now met with awe. And in this change, the ocean shifts too, not only in biology, but in relationship. The sea remembers us not only for what we took, but for what we chose to stop taking. And there are other signs. Reefs that were once bone white begin to show colour again. Young sharks appear in bays where none had been for decades. Seagrass meadows regrow, inviting back turtles, eels, and the slow, soft manatees that graze like ghosts. These changes are slow, they do not shout, but they matter, because they prove that the memory of abundance still lives in the water. It only needs space to rise. In the Arctic, as ice retreats, narwhals swim quieter routes, confused but adapting. In the tropics, spinner dolphins twirl in dusky light, passing their dances from mother to calf. And deep in trenches no human has touched, ancient life still glows, not with power but with persistence. These beings remind us that even when we forget the ocean, it remembers how to hold life. What remains is our choice. To become caretakers of memory, to let the old migrations continue, to reduce harm not just for survival but for reverence, to create sanctuaries, quiet zones, spaces where giants and the small alike can breathe. Because the ocean does not demand, it invites, it asks, gently, if we might join the long work of remembering. And perhaps this is what the sea truly teaches, that memory is not a burden, but a compass, that the past is not a weight, but a guide, that the stories of the vanished giants were not tragedies, but beginnings. Their bones lie at the bottom of the sea, yes, but their grace moves in every current. Their presence lingers in the patterns of life. Their legacy hums in the coral, sings in the whales, pulses in the tides. So let us listen. Let us slow down and notice. Let us learn the rhythms of the waves and the meaning behind the stillness. Let us hold the vanished giants not only in museum halls or ancient books, but in the shape of our choices. Let us leave space in the water for more songs to rise, and let us understand that the ocean's memory, gentle, vast and blue, will carry the echo of those who remember with it. One day a child may stand at the shore and see a whale breach in the golden light of evening. They will not know how close we came to losing it. They will only feel wonder, and that wonder passed on becomes a new kind of memory, one made not of sorrow but of return. In the stillness after flame, the world holds its breath. The ground is dark, the air thick with ash, the trees silent and skeletal. But beneath the blackened bark and the scorched soil something stirs. Fire, though fierce, is not only a destroyer, it is also a beginning. For millions of years, Earth has burned by lightning, by lava, by the spark of heat in dry grass. With each burning came renewal. What looks like an end is often the start of something softer, something green. Fire reshapes the landscape not just by taking, but by giving. It cracks open the seeds of certain trees, melts resin that holds them tight. In pine forests, cones sealed shut for years burst wide in the heat, sending their seeds into smoke-dark skies. These seeds fall onto warm, cleared earth, a perfect cradle. In the chaparral and savanna, grasses burn fast and then return faster, their roots untouched beneath the surface. Even some flowers, rare and ancient, bloom only after flame as if awakened by light in the dark. This rhythm of burning and blooming, of ash and green, is not random. It is woven into the DNA of the land. Eucalyptus trees in Australia hold oil in their leaves that encourages fire, knowing that after the blaze, they will grow back stronger. Prairie plants build root systems so deep that even wildfire cannot reach them. Fire clears away the tall and tangled, letting sunlight reach low. It opens space for the forgotten, the buried, the waiting. In this way, fire is not destruction, it is memory set free. Animals too know this pattern. Birds like the black-backed woodpecker thrive in burned forests, carving homes into softened trunks. Elk and deer return to graze the tender shoots that emerge first. Even insects respond. Some beetles are drawn to smoke, laying their eggs in the warmth of the new wood. Fire does not scare life away. It invites life back in a different shape, a different tempo, a new breath. For many indigenous peoples, fire has never been an enemy. It has been a tool, a friend, a cycle. Controlled burns, low, careful fires lit by hand, have long been used to manage forests, encourage new growth, keep the land open and healthy. These fires mimic nature's own, but gentler, more rhythmic, less chaotic, and the land responds. Meadows grow thicker, berries return, animals follow the bloom. This practice, passed down for generations, honours the truth that nature does not fear fire, only imbalance. In modern times, fear has often replaced understanding. Fires were seen only as danger, and so they were suppressed, extinguished at every turn. But without fire, the forest forgets how to breathe. Dead wood piles up, underbrush thickens, and when fire does come, as it always will, it burns hotter, faster, more destructively. What was once a renewal becomes a catastrophe. The land is not to blame. It is only trying to remember how to begin again. Still, not all fire is natural. Today, flames are fueled by a warming climate, by longer droughts, by human sprawl into wild places. These fires do not always follow the old rules. They burn too hot, they climb too high, they leap roads and rivers, the balance tips. And yet, even here, in the most scarred ground, green returns. It may take longer, it may come in new forms, but life listens, it feels the heat. And when the moment is right, it begins again. Ash, rich with minerals, feeds the soil. Rain brings the scent of earth back to the air. Shoots emerge, pale and soft, then darken with sun. The forest does not rush. It rebuilds in layers. Moss first, then grasses, then shrubs, then trees, and under each new root the old roots remain, charred but present, memory embedded in the very structure of growth. To walk through a burned forest a year later is to witness the earth's patience. The black trunks still stand, silent as ghosts, but between them colour returns, reds, purples, greens. Insects buzz, birds call. The cycle hums once more. This is not a return to what was, it is a transformation, a becoming, a whisper that says, I remember, and I begin. Let us wander now into the soft edge where fire has passed and green is just beginning. Here, among blackened trunks and scorched soil, new life curls upward like breath. It does not emerge with urgency, it rises slowly, quietly, responding not to command but to invitation. Fire has cleared the way, not by accident, but by design, by centuries of partnership between flame and root, ash and seed. And in that cleared silence, the earth begins to hum again. In the Sierra Nevada mountains, entire ecosystems depend on fire's return. The giant sequoias, towering trees that have stood for thousands of years, need heat to open their cones. Without fire, their seeds remain trapped, unable to reach the earth. Fire burns away the heavy duff on the forest floor, creating open soil for those seeds to find light. And as new sequoias rise, they carry within them the memory of flame, the inheritance of heat, the quiet rhythm of renewal. These trees do not resist fire. They are born from it. On the African savannas, fire sweeps regularly through dry grasses, but it does not stop the wildebeest, the zebra, the elephant. These creatures know the dance. They step aside, move toward water, return as soon as green shoots begin to rise from the soot. Some birds even follow the fire, feeding on insects stirred from hiding. The fire comes, life moves, the green returns. It is not destruction, it is breath. A long inhale, then a release. In the forests of North America, the jack pine grows with cones sealed shut by resin. Only the heat of fire can release the seeds within, and when it does, the seeds fall onto ground newly cleared and rich with minerals. A new generation begins. This strategy has worked for tens of thousands of years, a perfect balance of waiting and opening, of stillness and spark. Even the lodgepole pine and the eucalyptus have evolved alongside flame, holding within them the trust that fire is not a threat but a partner. But not all plants need heat to bloom. Some need smoke. Scientists have discovered that certain wildflowers only germinate when exposed to smoke particles, a chemical signal that tells them it is safe to grow. It's as if the fire leaves behind a message. Now is the time. Rise. And the seeds, buried deep for years, answer that call. They stretch, they bloom, they cover the ground in petals so bright they seem to sing. This is the secret of the post-fire landscape, that it does not mourn. It responds, it begins, and what returns is often more vibrant than what was lost. Lupines blanket hillsides, poppies explode in orange waves, grasses shimmer like silver. This sudden flourishing, called a super bloom, happens only when the conditions are just right, after fire, after rain, after quiet. The desert blooms not because it was spared, but because it was scorched. Animals too return, not all at once, but in careful waves. Insects come first, to beetles drawn to heat, bees to the flowers, then birds, woodpeckers, bluebirds, finches, then mammals, rabbits, foxes, deer. Even predators return following the trail of renewal. Each step builds upon the last. Each creature becomes a thread in the tapestry of rebirth, and under it all the soil shifts, breathes, feeds, remembers. But for all its gifts, fire also teaches humility. It shows us that not all control is helpful, that in trying to stop every flame we sometimes build conditions for worse ones, that in paving over the wild we forget how to listen. In recent years, large wildfires have grown more intense, not because fire is wrong, but because our relationship with it has fractured. Forests that once burned every decade now burn only every century, and when they do, the fire is no longer soft, it is desperate. It is too much. The answer is not to fear fire, but to relearn its language. To burn when the time is right, to mimic the slow, low blazes of nature and tradition, to restore balance rather than suppress it. Indigenous firekeepers around the world are returning to their ancient role, tending the land not with water, but with flame. And the land responds. The forests grow healthier, the grass is more resilient, the animals return in greater number, because the land remembers even if we forget. So fire in its true form is not a disaster. It is a cycle, a cleansing, a renewal. It is the earth's way of clearing its throat, of making room, of reminding us that life is not linear. It loops, it folds, it burns, it blooms. And if we listen, if we trust, we can become part of that rhythm once more. We can learn when to let go, when to rest, and when to rise again from the ash. Now imagine standing in the middle of a landscape that burned 1 year ago. The trees are dark, their branches bare, and the air still holds the scent of charcoal. But beneath your feet, green has returned. Small plants press up through the ash. Mushrooms rise like soft buttons. Shoots of grass wave gently where only soot once lay. There is no rush, no trumpet of celebration, only a quiet insistence that life goes on. This is the voice of resilience, not loud, not proud, but steady. This is how the earth begins again. In every scorched place, something chooses to return first. Sometimes it is a flower, pale and unexpected, sometimes a tiny fern unrolling itself like a secret, and sometimes it is the silence that arrives before the sound, a hush so complete that when a bird finally sings again, the song feels like a sunrise. The land does not forget what came before, but it does not cling to it either. It makes space for what is next, and in doing so it invites balance. Children planting in post-fire soil often ask, will the trees come back? The answer is yes, but not all at once. Some trees send shoots from burned stumps. Others drop seeds into the cooling earth. Some do not return at all, replaced by a new generation of shrubs and flowers, and this too is natural. Fire doesn't rebuild a mirror of what was, it writes a new page, and every root that stretches down into the ash carries the ink of that story. In fire-managed lands, this pattern is familiar. The old trees bear the black marks of 100 burns and still stand tall. Their bark is thick, their hearts unburned. Around them, meadows bloom where thickets once stood. The air feels cleaner. The animals move freely. These places are not untouched. They are touched again and again with care. Fire is not their enemy. It is their gardener. We can see this in the boreal forests of Canada, where lightning strikes spark fires every summer, and the forest answers by growing thicker, greener, more diverse. We see it in the grasslands of Africa, where fire and rain dance in turns, bringing waves of life with each pass. We see it in the outback of Australia, where Aboriginal firekeepers light gentle blazes to clear old growth and let kangaroo grass thrive. All over the world, fire shapes landscapes not by ending them, but by refining them, by guiding life's return through light. And there is something deeply human in this rhythm. We too have fires within us, moments that burn down what we were, a loss, a failure, a change. We call them endings, but what if they are clearings? What if they are how we make space for the next version of ourselves? Like the tree that drops all its leaves, or the flower that only blooms after heat, we are made to rise after burning. We carry within us the wisdom of forests, the ability to root deeper, to bloom brighter, to become more whole after being broken open. This truth calls for a different kind of attention, a slower one, a gentler one that does not rush to cover the burned ground, but instead sits with it, waits, listens, and when the first green appears, greets it with reverence. Because recovery is not speed, it is trust, the kind of trust that knows the ash will feed the soil, that the silence will make space for song, that the story is still being written. Even now, as the world grows warmer and fires grow stronger, we are offered a choice, not just to fear the flame, but to understand it, to honour its rhythm, to protect what must never burn and to guide what must. It is not easy, it is not quick, but it is possible, and in every place we make this choice. In every forest we manage with fire instead of against it, in every landscape we heal instead of harm, the earth remembers. And so the cycle turns once more. Ash to seed, seed to root, root to leaf, leaf to flame, and back again. It is not a spiral of loss, but of becoming, a rhythm that includes fire not as an intruder, but as a chapter, a soft reminder that sometimes, to grow, we must let go, and that from what seems destroyed, something more beautiful can always rise. So let us watch the fire not only for what it takes, but for what it gives. Let us plant where the smoke has cleared. Let us walk gently among the charred trunks and listen for the green. Because deep beneath the blackened bark, life is always waiting. And when it comes not with noise, but with colour, with roots, with light, with grace. In the early morning, long before the sun stretches across rooftops and valleys, the world used to begin with birdsong. Not just one voice, but a chorus, trills, chirps, whistles, and warbles layered like threads in a warm fabric. It was the first music many creatures heard each day, the sound of life resetting itself with light. But now, in many places, the sky is quieter. The dawn arrives, but the songs do not. And the silence that fills the trees is not just absence, it is grief. Soft, slow, unnoticed by many, the birds are vanishing, and with them the sky feels a little less alive. Once, birds filled every part of the world. Finches flitted through city parks, warblers threaded forests with melody. Swallows stitched the air above fields with grace. From mountain tops to coastal mangroves there was a rhythm, a hum, a constant movement of wings. Some flew thousands of miles each year to find warmth, crossing oceans, deserts, and entire continents. Some never left the trees they were born in. Each one had a place, a purpose, a part in the great system of life. But now the patterns are fraying. In North America alone, over 3 billion birds have disappeared since the 1970s, nearly 1 in 4. Gone not in fire or flood, but in silence. The causes are not mysteries. They are small daily changes that build like wind across decades. Windows that reflect sky and fool a bird into fatal flight. Pesticides that turn insects to poison. Cities that shine too brightly, confusing night migrants. Forests cleared. Wetlands drained. Fields sterilized. The places birds once nested are paved, fenced, emptied. The air they once filled is louder with engines and quieter with feathers. Climate, too, is shifting the world beneath their wings. Flowers bloom too early. Insects hatch too late. The precision of timing, built over millennia, falls out of sync. And when a bird arrives and finds no food, no mate, no shelter, it leaves, or it dies. Yet some birds remain. The robin in the garden, the crow on the wire, the pigeon on the ledge. We see them and believe all is well, but diversity has thinned. Many species have vanished from whole regions. The ones that stay are often those who tolerate disruption best. The specialists, the birds who need old trees, quiet wetlands, or insect-rich skies, are slipping away. And when they do, we lose more than beauty. Birds pollinate flowers, spread seeds, control pests. They are not just decoration, they are function. And their disappearance pulls threads from the ecosystem, leaving holes too small to see until they widen. But the sky is not yet empty. In some places it still sings. There are forests where songbirds gather like breath. Marshes where herons stand silent and poised. Cliffs where falcons slice the wind. And every one of these places is a story of care, where habitats were preserved, where poisons were reduced, where people listened and acted. The return of the bald eagle in North America, once nearly extinct, is not just a success story. It is proof that when we change, the sky responds, slowly but faithfully. Birds are also memory, not just in the fossils of feathered dinosaurs, but in the stories they carry from place to place. A swallow returns to the same nest each year. A crane follows the path its ancestors took 1,000 seasons ago. A migrating tern touches 6 continents in a lifetime, yet finds its way back to the same patch of sea. This is not instinct alone. It is something deeper. A felt map, a lived rhythm, a memory passed through muscle and wing, not word. And when those wings go still, something ancient is paused. And so we must ask, what happens to a world without wings, without flight, without the songs that greeted each morning and softened each night? What happens when children grow up without knowing what a lark sounds like or what a murmuration looks like against the dusk? The loss is not loud, it does not shout, but it lingers, it deepens, and in the quiet it leaves behind something in us dims too. But there is time. The sky may be quieter, but it is not silent. Not yet. And if we listen carefully, we can still hear the ones who remain. Their calls are softer now, but they are still calling, not only to each other, but to us. Let us follow those calls now, faint though they may be, into the places where birds still sing, and into the ones where they've fallen silent. In every forest, every meadow, every city park, there is a history of wings. Some mornings still begin with a single note, a thrush hidden among leaves, letting out a phrase as old as trees. That note is more than music. It is a signal, a declaration that life continues, that territory is held, that mates are near, that morning has returned. When birds stop singing, it's not only the sound that fades, it's the rhythm of life itself. Birds shape the world in ways both obvious and hidden. They eat seeds and drop them far from where they fed, planting forests without knowing. They eat insects that would otherwise swarm crops. They stir the air above wetlands, mixing scent and pollen. Some birds, like the honey guide, even cooperate with humans, leading people to bee nests in exchange for leftover wax. Others act as forest architects, like the woodpecker, whose abandoned cavities become homes for owls, bats, and bluebirds. When birds vanish, these relationships unravel. What looks like an isolated silence becomes a broken thread in a wider web. Migration is perhaps their most astonishing memory. Each year, billions of birds cross hemispheres, some weigh less than a teaspoon, and yet fly thousands of miles without rest. Arctic terns, in their endless dance between poles, see more daylight in a year than any other creature. Bar-tailed godwits fly for 8 straight days over oceans without food or water. Swallows return to the same eaves, storks to the same chimney. These are not habits, they are ceremonies, ancient, precise, fragile, and climate change is now shifting the wind beneath their wings. As seasons blur and habitats change, many birds arrive to find that the cues they once trusted, blooming flowers, insect swarms, nesting spaces, no longer align with their needs. A few days too early and the feast is not yet ready. A few days too late and it is gone. For a migratory bird, timing is everything. And when the world moves too fast, it outruns the rhythm that once kept the skies alive. In some places, people are trying to catch that rhythm again. Cities are turning off lights during your peak migration, helping birds navigate by stars as they have for eons. Farmers are leaving hedgerows and planting native grasses, giving nesting birds safe spaces between crops. Wetlands are being restored, their reeds and pools calling back ducks and herons. Some homeowners are planting milkweed and sunflowers, listening more closely to the flutter of wings in their backyards. These are small acts, but birds notice. They return where they feel welcome. Technology is helping too. Birdsong is being recorded in every corner of the world, archived in vast digital libraries. Satellite tracking lets scientists follow a single bird across oceans. These tools reveal just how deeply connected birds are to Earth's systems and to ours. A warbler nesting in a Canadian forest may rely on insects from a Colombian jungle and rest stops in the wetlands of Louisiana. To save that one song is to care for half the world. And still, so much remains mysterious. How do birds navigate by magnetic fields? Why do some learn songs while others are born with them? What do they see as they fly above the earth? What patterns do they follow that we cannot yet name? These questions remind us that even the most familiar creatures can still hold wonder, that even the sparrow on a windowsill is a miracle in feathers. But we cannot hold that miracle forever if we do not change. Glass windows can be made visible to birds with simple patterns. Pesticides can be reduced or replaced. Habitats can be preserved, expanded, reimagined. The cost is not beyond us, only the will. And the return is not abstract, it is the return of sound, of motion, of the joy that rises in a child who spots a hummingbird at a flower, or hears a lark sing just after rain. In that joy is memory, not our own perhaps, but the world's. A memory of forests once alive with calls, of skies darkened not by pollution, but by wings, of ecosystems stitched together with feathers and flight. Birds carry that memory still, in their hearts, in their hollow bones, in their unerring instinct to rise with the light and return to where they began. And if we meet them halfway, with space, with care, with silence enough to hear them, they will keep singing, for us, for each other, for the green and blue planet that still, just barely, remembers how to echo their flight. Now picture a field at twilight, where the air is cooling and the sky blushes with the last light of day. A single bird cuts through the golden air, its wings wide, its body silent. This moment is both ancient and present. It holds everything, memory, loss, and the quiet promise of return. The bird flies because it must, because it remembers a path older than roads or fences, because something in its blood still believes the world can hold it. And in that belief we are invited to remember too. In villages, towns and cities, there are places where birds once nested in chimneys and eaves under porches, in orchards that no longer grow. The swifts that once poured like smoke into summer skies now find no roost. The sparrows that chirped from hedgerows now struggle to find seed. And yet there are places, gentle, persistent places, where people build boxes on poles, leave grass uncut, grow thickets of berry bush and thorn. These gestures are not grand, but they are enough to coax one more call into the morning, enough to give wing to one more fledgling. Birdsong, for all its softness, carries power. It shapes how trees grow, how insects move, how seasons feel. It fills gaps that humans forget to see. The absence of birdsong is not just an ecological warning, it is an emotional ache. We don't always notice it right away, but when it returns we do. A garden that was quiet begins to hum. A morning walk becomes a listening. And with each flutter and phrase, something inside us stirs too. Something older than memory. There's a kind of healing that birds bring simply by being. Their presence doesn't fix the world, but it reminds us that the world still responds, that it still listens, that it still sings back if given the chance. In Japan, there are temples where priests ring bells and offer seeds to birds in silence. In the Arctic, elders teach children to mimic the calls of loons and geese, not as play, but as respect. Across continents, across cultures, the presence of birds is seen not as background, but as blessing. And the birds themselves carry stories longer than our own. They have witnessed ice ages and the rise of forests, the falling of empires and the return of rain. They have crossed continents without passports, fled storms we never saw, landed in places where no human ever walked. Their wings have drawn invisible lines between seasons and survival. And even now, even with all we've changed, many still fly those same lines. Still trust that the winds will carry them, that the trees will be there, that the sky, despite its currents, will still hold them up. But they cannot do it alone. The world is shifting faster than their memories can adapt. Forests are vanishing before a nest can be built. Skies grow louder with machines. Lights blaze where stars once guided them. And the question becomes not whether they can survive, but whether we will remember how to let them. Whether we will see them not as scenery but as kin, not as noise but as necessary. Because when the birds are gone, what remains? A world without wings feels heavier. A morning without song feels hollow. But a world that listens, that slows, that shelters, that world still has hope. And that hope begins with the small things, turning off a light, planting a native tree, letting a patch of garden go bad, teaching a child the name of a bird, the shape of its song. Hope begins when we make room for return. And return is not a miracle. It is a response. A bird does not ask for applause, it only asks for space to land, for insects to eat, for quiet to sing, for a sky that is still sky. And when we offer that, the birds come back. One by one, then many, a flutter, then a flock, a call, then a chorus. And maybe one day a child will wake to the dawn and hear the world not in silence but in song. They will not know what was nearly lost, only what was lovingly kept. And in that chorus, in the breath of wings, in the hush before flight, in the rising hymn of the living sky, they will feel something sacred, something shared, something saved. Beneath our feet, under the roots of trees and the weight of stones, the soil breathes, not in the way lungs do, with air rushing in and out, but in its own quiet rhythm, a rhythm of decay and growth, of stillness and stirring, of old things becoming new. The earth is not dead matter. It is alive. Every handful of healthy soil holds more living organisms than there are people on the planet. Bacteria, fungi, worms, protozoa, a galaxy of life hidden in brown dust. And within that life is memory. The soil remembers everything. It remembers the footsteps of animals long gone. It holds pollen from plants that bloomed centuries ago. It stores the carbon of forests burned and regrown, the nitrogen of fallen leaves, the calcium of bones turned to dust. When a tree falls and rots, when a bird dies in the grass, when a flower wilts, they do not disappear. They return to the soil, not as ghosts, but as nutrients, as information, as a memory reabsorbed. In this way, the Earth is a vast living archive of the planet's story. This memory is not static. It is alive, always shifting. Fungi stretch through the ground in long, thread-like filaments called hyphae, forming vast networks known as mycorrhizae that connect trees and plants in quiet communication. Through these threads, trees share water, nutrients, even warnings. A mother tree may send sugars to her saplings. A forest under insect attack may signal its neighbours to prepare. This is not imagination. It is science. The soil is not silent. It speaks in molecules and minerals, in pulses and exchanges we are only beginning to understand. And yet, for all its complexity, the soil is often overlooked. We build on it, farm it, strip it, poison it. We call it dirt, as if it were nothing more than mess. But without soil, there is no food, no forest, no breath. Plants rise from it, animals feed on it, water filters through it. The atmosphere depends on it. The earth, without living soil, is a body without blood. And when we damage it, we wound more than a landscape. We silence a memory system older than writing. Still, the soil forgives, slowly but surely. In places where forests were cleared, prairies burned, and fields abandoned, life returns from the ground up. Seeds buried for decades sprout when conditions soften. Bacteria repopulate, fungi rethread, worms dig their silent tunnels. It may take years or centuries, but the earth tries to remember itself. It does not rebuild with haste. It listens, then responds. This is why restoration is possible, not because we force it, but because the soil, if allowed, remembers how to heal. There are places where this healing is visible. In the Netherlands, wetlands drained for farming have been flooded again, and the soil, long silent, began to bloom. In China, desert edges are being planted with native grasses, and the dust once lost to wind now holds shape again. In India, ancient farming techniques that nurture the soil using compost, mixed crops and natural cycles are bringing life back to cracked earth. These are not technological miracles. They are acts of listening, of letting the soil speak again. Soil also remembers injustice. In places where chemicals were dumped, where war scarred the ground, where extraction left gaping wounds, the soil grows slowly, if at all. Heavy metals linger. Microbial life suffers. The land forgets how to grow, but even there signs of return flicker. Pioneer species, dandelions, mosses, lichens, arrive first. Then fungi. Then the long process of recovery begins. The soil does not hold grudges, but it does not forget. It needs time and kindness. Farmers around the world are rediscovering this. Practices like no-till farming, cover cropping and composting restore the breath to tired fields. Soil rich in organic matter holds more water, supports more life, pulls carbon from the sky. In the Amazon, patches of terra preta, black earth, still flourish, made fertile by ancient peoples who mix charcoal, bone and waste into the ground. These soils remain productive after centuries, showing that we once knew how to grow with the earth, not just on it. This is the breath of the soil, slow, deep, enduring. It is the exhale of decomposition and the inhale of new life. It is not linear. It loops, it layers, it holds death without fear and birth without fanfare. And in its steady rhythm it teaches us how to remember, gently, fully and always from the ground up. Let us move more deeply now into the breathing layers of earth, not only as a surface to be walked upon, but as a living system layered with patience and promise. The soil beneath us is never still. With every drop of rain it shifts, with every root that grows it stretches, with every worm that tunnels it churns. Even in the quietest corners something is happening. A leaf falls, a beetle dies, a seed cracks open. These are not separate events. They are movements in the same symphony, and the soil conducts it all. In the forests of temperate lands, the leaf litter that gathers in autumn is more than debris. It is a seasonal blanket, shelter for insects, food for microbes, cover for hibernating frogs. As winter passes and warmth returns, the soil wakes with them. Fungi bloom in invisible filaments, bacteria multiply in warming pockets, and the leaves that once lay idle become nourishment, pulled into the mouths of earthworms and the mouths of roots. This is not just decay, it is transformation. The death of one thing becomes the life of many. In prairies, grasses grow deep, not just tall above ground, but downward, into rich, dark soil that smells of memory. Some roots stretch down 10 feet or more, holding the land in place during floods, feeding it during droughts. These grasslands, often overlooked in favour of forests or mountains, are some of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, all because of what happens beneath. Every season, grasses die back, and every season they regrow. The soil, layered with roots and carbon and time, remembers every cycle, And beneath tropical rainforests, where growth above is explosive, the soil must work harder. Thin and often nutrient-poor, it depends on the constant rain of organic matter, fallen fruit, animal droppings, shed bark, and to stay alive. Here, decomposition is fast, nothing stays still for long. And yet, even in this rush, the soil manages to cradle life. The trees grow because of the fungi at their roots. The fungi thrive because of the sugar from the trees, and both thrive because the soil allows it, a host, a vessel, a quiet facilitator. In deserts, the soil remembers differently. It remembers scarcity. It clings to water like treasure. It forms thin crusts of cyanobacteria, lichens and moss, fragile communities that hold the ground together. These crusts take decades to form and seconds to destroy under careless feet or tires. And once broken, they are hard to repair. But when protected, they feed the land, trap dust, fix nitrogen, and allow life to return. Even in the driest places, the soil does not forget how to live. It only needs to be left alone long enough to try. In Arctic tundra, soil breathes more slowly than anywhere else. Locked beneath permafrost, organic matter accumulates without fully decaying. Plants grow short and dense. Life is built layer by layer, year by frozen year. But now, as the climate warms, these ancient layers begin to thaw. And with that thaw comes the release of memory too long buried. Methane, carbon dioxide, old spores, old bacteria. The soil, stirred awake too quickly, does not know how to respond. What was once still and safe is now exposed and uncertain. This is not nature's mistake. It is our reminder that change has consequences, especially when rushed. Yet even now, in these threatened places, there are signs of care. In community gardens tucked between city buildings, compost turns scraps into soil. In schools, children learn to feel the difference between lifeless dirt and rich earth. In farms that rotate crops, plant cover grasses, and let the soil rest, the land grows healthier each season. In forests left untouched, the undergrowth thickens, the fungi bloom, and the soil deepens its breath. There are also stories hidden in the soil, literal ones. In archaeological sites, layers of soil reveal human history. Charcoal from ancient fires, bones from meals long eaten, potsherds and seeds and pollen. The soil is a library, and each stratum is a page. It tells us what people planted, what they hunted, what they changed, and what they lost. And as we read these pages, we begin to see that soil does not only remember nature, it remembers us. We are part of the soil's story whether we recognize it or not. Every footstep, every harvest, every garden, every cleared forest leaves a trace. And so we must ask, what traces do we want to leave? What story do we want the earth to remember? Because the soil, with its soft breath and long patience, will not forget. It is not too late to shape that memory with care. Not too late to let the soil rest, to feed it gently, to listen when it tells us what it needs. The earth has carried us for so long, it is time we carried it too, gently, softly, with the respect owed to any elder that has kept us alive. Now imagine placing your hand flat against the earth, not just to test its warmth, but to feel its story. The ground beneath you has held rain, fire, roots, footprints, ash, and seeds. It has known ice and drought, silence and song. What seems like silence is full of voices. What looks still is always changing. The soil does not demand attention. It offers a soft kind of wisdom, the kind that listens more than it speaks, the kind that holds everything and still makes room for more. In every place where healing has begun, it started with listening. When farmers began leaving strips of land untouched, biodiversity returned. When construction paused to protect old root systems, the soil beneath held firm during storms. When cities introduced green roofs and garden corridors, worms and insects came back, threading the ground with their quiet labour. These are not large miracles. They are small acts of memory being restored. Sometimes the soil even surprises us. A field thought to be dead springs back into bloom after a single wet season. A ruined mine becomes a meadow. A cracked, dry plot turns green when native seeds are sown and feet are kept away. The land is not waiting for perfection. It is waiting for permission to begin again, to build again, to breathe again. And in breathing, the soil helps the planet breathe too. Healthy soil stores carbon, reducing the heat in the atmosphere. It soaks up floodwaters, preventing disasters. It filters toxins, protecting rivers and lakes. It grows the trees that shade us, the food that feeds us, the flowers that comfort us. It does all this quietly, patiently, beneath our notice, but it does it all the same. When we talk about extinction, we often look to the sky, to oceans, to forests, but below it all is the soil, the beginning and the end of every cycle. Extinction begins when the soil dies, and renewal begins when the soil is allowed to live again. It is where the seeds wait, where the roots remember, where the fungi connect, where the breath of life begins. In many indigenous cultures, soil is sacred. It is not property, it is not resource, it is kin, it is ancestor, it is teacher. Offerings are made to the land. Thanks are given before harvest. Stories are told that link every child, every tree, every river to the ground that holds them. This reverence is not poetic idealism, it is survival. It is understanding that to care for the land is to care for the future. And perhaps this is what we must remember most, that the soil does not belong to us. We belong to it. We are not above it. We are of it. Our bodies return to it. Our food rises from it. Our homes stand on it. Our stories begin with it. If we forget this, we will lose more than landscapes. We will lose a part of ourselves. But if we remember, if we learn to move gently, to build humbly, to grow wisely, then the soil will respond. Not with quick reward, but with deep resilience. It will cradle our roots, feed our futures, carry our children. So let us return to the ground. Let us kneel beside a patch of dirt and see not lifeless dust, but a living map of time. Let us compost what is no longer needed and celebrate what rises in its place. Let us make space for fungi, for beetles, for seeds we may never see bloom, because the earth is always watching, always listening, always remembering, and it waits not for us to save it, but to join it, to fall back into rhythm, to root ourselves in care, and when we do, when our lives begin to echo the slow, steady breath of the soil, we will not just remember the world, we will become part of its memory, a kind memory, a soft one, a living one.